Hey guys, guest tonight, Dr. Heather Leigh, will be on hand to talk about haunted ghost towns of Southern Nevada. See you in about 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey everybody, how's everybody doing? Looks like Murphy's Law just kicked in. Wonderful. It's going to be one of those days, huh? Hi, I'm Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour, I hope. And I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team, based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state of California, which means if you have a paranormal issue, we can get to you. We may not be able to do it right away, but we will get to you. California is this huge state. You know, a lot of people think of us kind of like Hawaii, you know, beaches and surfing and all that. We are. However, there's another part of the state. The further you go up north, it gets cooler. So then we've got guys in wetsuits, and there's more spread out areas. There's farming areas. You've got high desert, low desert. You've got mountains, and you've got a lot of rural areas out there. So that's why, even though we're strategically positioned around the state, it may take us a couple days. But in that case, we do have psychics who can call you and settle. In most cases, if there is something paranormal going on in your house or your business, they can settle the energy down until we get out there, because it usually doesn't take us more than 1 or 2 days to get out there. That's the max on it. So rest assured. Okay, that being said, if you want to find us, it's really easy. We are all over Facebook. You can make an adjustment. I hate my cords. You can find us all over Facebook. You can find under my name. You can find us under California Haunts Radio on Facebook, and the Sacramento Seers Psychic Team as well. That's SEERS. All right, and we also have a California Haunts events page that you guys can find us on too. We're also on TikTok under California Haunts. We are over on Twitter under California Haunts, and we are also on Twitch, I believe, as Cal Haunts. And I am on Instagram under Ghosty Gal. That's all lowercase. So it's really easy to find us and get a hold of us for stuff. Okay. All right. That being said, Halloween is coming, and we are setting up a couple of events that, not so much for paid events for you guys to help us out with, but to come out with this on. But we're going to be doing a couple online, well, at least I'm hoping to put this together, to do a couple online investigations so you can see us live investigating. So that ought to be fun for you guys to watch us and see how we do things, all right? So be looking forward to that. I'm also going to be teaching a class on EVPs, you know, the best ways to obtain them and how to process them once you do obtain them, how to process them through the different those different softwares that we'll use as ghost hunters. Because I've been doing this 18 years, so I've been doing EVP work for 18 years. And what's funny is that when I look back on the stuff I did when I first started out in the field, they're horrible, just horrible. You know, because when you first start doing them, you always overcompensate and you do weird things to try to pull them out, right? But then as you get older, you get used to doing it, get used to working with the software, you get better and better at it. But like I said, if I go back and listen to the stuff I did back say 15 years ago, oh my gosh, it's horrible. It's just horrible. So you got to start somewhere. So this is a guide for you guys out there if you're into investigating and stuff and you want to learn a little more about EVP processing in a way to improve what you're already doing. This will be the class for you. I should have the announcement up for that class probably around 8 p.m. Pacific tonight, after the show, of course, and so we can get rolling with that. That'll be over at the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup site. Okay? All right. That being said, I'm also offering a meditation club. It's $25 a month, and I can take up to 10 students in each class. And what we do is I set it up for 3:30 p.m. Pacific for the people that live on the East Coast, so it's not so late. And there's also a 7:45 p.m. Pacific for the people on the West in the West Coast areas to participate. And we will meditate 3 to 4 days a week, sometimes twice a day, depending on how everybody feels, the scheduling. And it's just a way to unwind, right? It's meditation, and we talk about health issues, and we talk about life issues, and just as an aid to unwind and stuff for you. So if you're into that sort of thing, and it's something you want to do to relax, come on over, head over to the California Haunts Meetup site, sign up for that, okay? We also have a Patreon site, and for the Patreon site, because we do a lot of pre-records, like our guest tomorrow night is a pre-recorded interview. Well, for the people that are signed up to the Patreon, they get first access to those interviews, ahead of releasing these videos publicly. So you're going to get first access, and not only that, Nancy and I have just did it again to me. There I went. Where the Marios go? Poof! I hate my internet. Not only that, Nancy and I are going to be doing something next week on that Patreon where you're going to get to ask Nancy questions and stuff. It's kind of like a private thing for Patreon members only, right? It's kind of like the subscriber thing over at TikTok where, they have subscriber-only chats. The Patreon would be a subscriber-only chat, with Nancy. And we've got a couple other guests that we've had on this last couple of weeks that are willing to do it as well. So you can get in and pick their brains a little more instead, about their subject. Okay? So that's something to look at. And you can look us up under California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team at Patreon. Or I think it's California Haunts Radio Patreon. Too much California Haunts. So if you're interested in that, head on over there, sign up, and we'll get you going on that. And I've got some great gifts when we hit our 50-member milestone over at Patreon. I've got some great gifts set up for you guys, some real cool giveaways. So, go over and check it out. There's like 4 videos over there already anyway. Okay. All right. Getting down to business. Our guest tonight, I hope I say her name right. I'm horrible with names. You guys know this. Dr. Heather Leigh. It's confusing because Jamie Lee Curtis spells it, same way, only with a Lee. So, yeah. Anyway, Dr. Heather Leigh is going to be talking about haunted Southern Nevada ghost towns. I haven't had a chance, and that's something I want to get going to with my team, is to get out to go into some ghost towns. The only ghost town I have done, well, I guess I could say 2 kind of ghost towns, is Virginia City and Columbia. But I've never really gone into like Bodie or any place like that. And so I'm eager to talk to Heather about this because I really am interested in getting into like those Nevada ghost towns and checking stuff out. I mean, we have Ione, we own the Ione Hotel, you got Ghost Cowboys in there, right? Murphy's Hotel, but it's just nothing like going to like a real ghost town. So I'm excited to have her on. So let's bring her in and get the show on the road. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm out of breath now, so you can take over. Tell me about you.
I was going to say, I thought my intros to my podcast was long, but you got me beat.
Okay, yeah, I'm good. I should keep a bag here so I can just after doing it. So tell me about you. Yeah.
I was going to say, we're worried. I've actually been in the paranormal field for more than 30 years. When I first started, it was mostly a lot of behind the scenes work. I helped paranormal teams with their research. Mm-hmm. And I was in it just mostly because I wanted to figure out why I was seeing my grandfather. And because he had never lived in the house that we lived in, no connection whatsoever. So that's kind of, and back in that day, that's when we had to go to the library and check out 30 books, mm-hmm. and bring them home and read through every page. We couldn't just, control F and find what we were looking for. So it was a lot of work that I did back then. But in the last 5-6 years, I kind of dove in head first. And I now do this full time, everything from researching, investigating, teaching classes. I do public speaking and as well as motivational and shamanic life coaching. I've written several books, and then, it's an ongoing process with me.
That's how I feel too after all this time. In fact, when I looked back this year and realized that it had been 18 years, I was astounded because it went really fast. And like you, when we started out, even though there was internet, it was AOL dial-up. That's what I had. So I was still going to libraries to find stuff out, right?
It still would have been quicker to go to the library
and to deal with dial-up. Yeah, my first website was done on AOL. I mean, that's scary. Yep. Well, I'm fascinated by Nevada. Like I said, I'm really fascinated by Nevada in general because there's so much history out there. Mm-hmm. Especially when you start reading and doing the research. There's just so much out there. So what attracted you? What attracted you to start looking at the ghost towns and stuff?
Well, we had lived out there prior to moving back to Florida for almost 7 years, just outside of Las Vegas and Henderson. And I was approached by Motion Picture Video to do a documentary because my paranormal team is my family. My husband and my son, where it's just us, but we like it that way. And they wanted to feature not only a paranormal family, but they also wanted to cover a lot of the ghost towns in Southern Nevada. So it was one of those things where we spent, weeks researching before we went filming. I had already been to Goldfield to do some other filming projects and investigating the different mine. We went into a mine up there and a whole bunch of different stuff in Goldfield. And it was just kind of one of those things where it was an aha moment. A friend of mine, Peter Haviland, passed away a few years ago, but he said to me, he's like, with all of your research, he's like, why don't you send it into History Press? And tell them I referred you, and let them know what you have and what they think. Because I've been, in addition to paranormal, I have degrees in communications. I was a journalist. I've been a freelance writer just as long as I've been in the paranormal field. So it all fit. And History Press loved it, and they published it, and that's how we're here where we are.
See, you and I have similar backgrounds. I mean, it's just a cut and dry with it. Yeah, I mean, the degree, everything. When we talk about ghost towns, what are we talking about? Because I know a lot of people like myself. To me, Bodie stands out for me, but also the ones that I've been to, you can't really call them ghost towns, but they have ghosts in them, like Virginia City or Murphy's or places like that. So what makes these places different than, say, Virginia City?
Right. Well, in my book, I actually classify 3 different categories of ghost towns, is what I've come up with just from investigating a whole bunch of different ones. The first one is complete ghost town, and those would be like Rhyolite, Berlin, all these locations that there's nobody there, no residents, there isn't even power there. And, just because it's a ghost town doesn't mean it's haunted by ghosts, but 9 times out of 10 it is.
Right.
Then I have working ghost towns, and these are the locations like Tonopah, Goldfield, where you have a small population of residents, usually around 500 or less, that still operate, manage, and keep the town running. And then I have what I classified as near ghost towns, because everybody asked me, well, why'd you include Boulder City, as a ghost town? But it's a ghost town in comparison to what it was during its heyday. When the Boulder Dam was being built, or the Hoover Dam now, when the Hoover Dam was being built, it was, booming. It was, one of the biggest cities in the area, and it had high levels of population. And now today, when you go there, I mean, it's quiet. I mean, you still have a lot of residents, and it's still, very populated city, but it's pretty quiet in most areas of that town.
Very interesting. So in your studies, as far as going into these haunted ghost towns, like you say, there's no electricity in a lot of these places. So what kind of equipment do you go in with? I mean, obviously, you're not going to be rigging up a DVR system or anything like that, right?
Exactly. I'm typically a non-tech girl. Of course, we do bring video recorders, digital voice recorders. I always carry it with me whenever I'm on an investigation as my backup. It's a keychain, actually, that's a voice recorder. And that's always running in case the digital voice recorders miss something. But I use dowsing rods, pendulums, of course, my 5 senses. I've even used fidget spinners. Everybody laughs at me for that, but fidget spinners are my investigative tool of choice. And then I know I'm still torn on the spirit box, because you have options to be contaminated, but when you're so far out, you can't pick up radio waves. So I think the best places to use a spirit box is in places like Gold Point, down in the mines in Nelson, down in the mines in Goldfield, because there are no radio stations for hundreds of miles. So you're not picking up anything.
Oh my gosh, someone that believes what I believe. I've been saying that for years. And all these other younger ghost hunters look at me like I'm nuts, but I've been saying that for years. I don't trust them.
Yeah, I have one just because we used to do a lot of public events. Right. And when you do a public event, people want, something now. Right. So we agreed, yeah, we'll get one. But it worked really well. We were, I want to say like 30, 40 feet underground. Works really well down there because you don't get any radio waves. And then Gold Point, they didn't have any. I mean, we scanned it and there was no radio frequencies whatsoever before we even attempted to use it. And then the minute we asked a question, it was like everybody flooded and wanted to talk to us. They were hello, hi, hello, 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 and all different voices, male and female.
Well, I believe in that theory. Like you say, the contamination. There's that story about the monkeys. To put a bunch of monkeys in a room with with typewriters and let them go, and eventually they'll write every classic there is. And that's how I feel about those boxes, because I always think, you get all these radio stations going, you're asking questions. Well, as it's scanning, it'll stop at certain points and it'll sound like your questions are being answered, but they're not.
Yeah. And especially if you want it to be answered.
Absolutely. What's one of the most haunted ghost towns out there, do you think?
I personally would think Goldfield, of course, but I've done a lot of investigating at Goldfield and have had a lot of personal experiences there. But then after Goldfield, Berlin has a lot of interesting stories. And those stories, I think, are more interesting. And I truly do feel that there's a high amount of energy there because there was a chimney that was used during World War II by the pilots for bullet practice. So you go there and you have the energy of, the World War II soldiers serving and that they were based there. And then you also have stories of the Manson family making their appearance in Berlin. So it's kind of interesting to hear the different stories, the courthouse and everything. There's actually, and it could have been etched by someone else, but it says Charlie Manson, 1974 was etched into the wall. And there's a story about how the female, she was an elderly lady, but she dubbed herself the godmother of the town. And she actually stood up to them and told them, you don't camp in town, here, go here. And then when she saw a newspaper several days later, it was the everyone arrested for the Manson murders in California.
Wow.
So, and people see her energy there. And if you do something you're not supposed to, she appears. Rocks have been thrown at people there. And so I think the energy in Berlin is very, very high.
What's it like when you walk in? I know, like McCollum Hill here in California tends to run really high energy wise, like when you're, especially if you're on the street at night. But again, that's what you would call the active, or however you categorize it as an active ghost town, technically.
Right.
So what's it like walking into one of these ghost towns where there's no power, no electricity? Do you feel eyes on you right away, or what's the feeling?
It's interesting. It's 'cause I get it when we do residential cases as well. Once I step over the threshold, I know who's there, where they are, and if the house is haunted or not, or if it's negative. And I get that even when we crossed over in Goldfield, I got that feeling. But walking around like Nelson, we went far enough outside of Nelson to where it was a abandoned mine, and we were doing the filming there, and no electricity, no nothing at that point in time. And the minute I got out of the car, it was like I could feel static energy around me. And it just, you felt the power that was there. And it's really interesting for those that can pick up on the power. And I know a lot of people who can't, because my husband, I don't want to say his psychic abilities are as limp as a wet noodle, but yeah, that's about the only way I could describe it. And he's probably going to be laughing at me if he's hearing what I'm saying. But he's the skeptic of our group, and he could even tell me, hey, something doesn't feel right. And he's, starting to develop it when we go into areas like that, especially when we lived in Nevada with the areas that had no power.
So when you being sensitive to this stuff, I remember going through, I used to think it was funny to go through with the psychics to go through these little towns, because even like with McCollum Hill, the psychic would get the giggles and go, the girls are right there. They got their legs over the, over the little fence, the little fence thing. It's the hookers, he used to laugh about all that because they're still going on about their business, Yep. They're just seeing us do stuff. I just used to go, wow, they're right there. But, they're trying to lure the guys over. When you talk about the entities that you met in these places, was it a negative feeling at all? When you were talking to them, was there anything negative in there? I know a lot of those towns, like McCollum Hill, there was a killing every day 1 year for 365 days. So was there a lot of negative energy?
Yeah, not that I've encountered, because even Nelson, there was a renegade Indian, Native American, who just slaughtered members of the camp. And then you also had Civil War deserters from the North and South. They evacuated to Nelson, and they actually had a mini Civil War out in Nelson because the Northerners and Southerners were fighting each other, even though they were all deserters. And I never really felt any negative energy, but a lot of people have claimed it. that they felt it there in Goldfield. I think the most negative that I've gotten was we crawled into a collapsed mine shaft.
Okay.
And something told me, because the rest of the team that I was with, we had stopped, because I was with a different team at the time. We had stopped probably about 10 feet before the collapsed area was. And something told me to crawl back there. And I'm not one for tight spaces. I'm very claustrophobic. And I've also, I mean, I didn't have the knee surgery yet, but I've had 2 knee replacements in the last 2 years. So this was prior to that. So, my knees weren't that great for me to be crawling around on gravel and through mine shafts. But I still had to go. And once I got back there, I started crying. I felt like I was being crushed, and I could hear men screaming. So even though it wasn't a negative feeling, it was very sad for me. And emotionally, it was very, very strange. And but the only other thing that could possibly come to being negative that I've personally encountered in a ghost town would be in Goldfield. And we were followed by a shadow person that was taking us around a mill house. And it was, bouncing around. It was on the ground. It was in the corner. And the next thing we know, it was in the rafters. And when we looked up into the rafters, it was crouching down, and it like almost led us to a hangman's noose.
Wow.
And it was a very feeling of dread that we had at that moment. So, but other than that, I've never really, I have been attacked by ghosts on residentials, but in the ghost towns, I always put out a positive energy, and I try to be positive, and I talk politely. So I always try. I'm like that in life too. So if someone's having a bad day, I'm going to try to turn them around and make them happy. So if someone's grumpy as a spirit, I'm going to do what I can to make them happy and not as grumpy.
Well, I was just curious about that because there's this. There's so much energy there, and there's so much happening in these towns that like even when we used to go out to the smaller places, you run into one or two, but they're not. It's not a big deal,
Right.
It's just the way the energy is. Have you found?
And I know there's several reports of it because I'm trying to remember all the locations, but there's several reports, other people. But I think that's just how they investigate.
I agree 100%. You're probably a beacon is what you are, and you're a beacon of bright light, and they like you because there's people that can draw them to them, and they're light beings anyway, because you're a light being. Let's hear your preparation when you decide you're going to investigate something like Goldfield. How do you, your family being your team, how do you guys prepare to go do something like that? Because it's huge. Like there's like I'll give an example. Like the Brookdale Lodge, there's like 500 ghosts in there or whatever, or 100 ghosts or whatever it is. And I know the psychic has to go in. And how do you prepare for something that's going to have so many ghosts in there?
I know for myself personally, I always try doing everything to stay grounded. I carry a howlite stone, a huge. It's probably about that big. I tuck it in my bra. I carry that with me, and then I created little sage vials that are made with just kind of like a sage spray, but it's a roll-on, and we all have that. But my son and my husband, they've just pretty much, my son wears sandstone. He really likes that as his protection, and then my husband wears his crystal. I believe last time he wore black tourmaline. Is what he wore last time. But other than that, we just go in and we wait and see what happens. And if something negatively happens, then we just go through our personal cleansing methods. But we don't want to close ourselves off too much because we don't want to scare away the ghosts either.
Absolutely. So tell me about a typical investigation for you guys to go into these places, to go into a town like this.
Okay. I'm trying to think. I'm going to use the Florence mine, for example. This was up in Goldfield. And when we arrived, it was activity. We weren't even out of the truck, and I was seeing spirits. And even though I more or less claim myself as sensitive and empathic, not really a psychic, just because I like to dive in and do research before going to these locations. So I will do everything from property research to talking to the owners. And I know more going in than a psychic should. So that's why I don't really classify myself as that.
Right.
But I was, seeing spirits, almost like they were more curious about us because we were the first team to ever investigate this particular location. So it was kind of like I said, they were more curious about us. But when we got there, of course, we had the owner give us a full tour of the property. He kind of shared with us locations that were haunted, locations that they've experienced it from living there because his family still lives there. And from there, we just said, hey, we're going to go into this one building. And the one building, I pulled out the different tools that we use. And a majority of the time, it's just EVP sessions that we do. But we do have, different things around just in case they want to communicate with us. And it's all about what we see, hear, and feel is what we do during the investigation. We all have logs. We document everything individually, and we don't share. So like, say if something touched me, I don't share that with anyone because I've been on investigations before where someone says, oh, something just touched my hand. And the next thing you know, 5 other people have their hand touched in the investigation. So we keep all that to ourselves. And then we compare at the end, and then we cross-check that with any EVPs or video footage that we've captured. And then from that investigation, we actually got invited to spend the night in the mine owner's home.
Cool.
So we all camped out in the living room. And of course, his kids were so excited. They had ghost hunters sleeping at the house. So they slept out with us in the middle of the night too. And in the middle of the night, we could see figures walking throughout the living room, kind of like checking up on everybody. And then I also was woken up in the middle of the night to someone screaming, I didn't start the fire. And Goldfield suffered 2 major fires, plus that particular mine also suffered a fire. So we're still doing research on that one. And that's been several years since we've done that. But then the next morning we woke up, we talked with the mine owner, his family, asked about their experiences. We shared what we experienced. And then we took another tour because this place was huge. And learned more about different aspects of the mine and just dove right in again with video cameras. We did use an Ovilus on that one. And that was more or less testing it out because it was a new toy. It was recently released and we wanted to see what it was all about. Still won't use it after that. Luckily, it wasn't mine. I was borrowing it from somebody. So I didn't spend the money on it. But it's fine if you guys want to spend money on it, but just do your research behind that. That's why I always tell people, do your research behind the tools because you never know, it may or may not work. But I personally, that's not a tool I believe in. But from there, we took everything we got, including, I think that was where we did the spirit box session underground. And then we all pack up and we kind of decompress afterwards. And even though Goldfield was a 3.5-hour drive away, we go out to dinner. We share our written notes and talk to each other about all of our experiences, make sure that everybody has copies of all the notes. And it's easier now that it's just my family because we have the notes in our house, where before the team that I was on, notes went to all different houses. So we kind of do that and then take a few days off. And then after a few days, that's when the real research starts and the reviewing of all the evidence and kind of digging deep into what we actually captured.
Fascinating. It's now for us, and I guess it is for you too. I mean, when you actually get a Class A EVP, it's exciting. One of these places. What's one of the better EVPs that you guys have gotten?
I have one. We were investigating a location in Las Vegas. It's not too far from where Tupac was murdered. And one of the investigators, we had been going from room to room of this location. And in between each room, I was always turning off the video recorder. And for some reason, this time I didn't turn off the video recorder because you could see it's kind of being carried upside down. So you're seeing behind me as we're walking. So either I forgot or it didn't work. I don't know. But luckily it was still recording because it's the only place we captured this. But someone had said in our group, they were like, wouldn't it have been cool if we would be able to connect with Tupac while we were here? Right after we got, I'm right here.
Whoa.
Clear as day.
That's awesome.
It was either a spirit saying, I'm here, why don't you talk to me?
Right.
Or it was Tupac saying, hey, I'm here, talk.
Right. And so, you know what I found? And you and I are kind of like, we must be psychically on the same wavelength, because while you're talking about that happening, I was just thinking of that the best EVPs that we've ever gotten are what I call the accidental EVP, where we're having a conversation about something, either about the investigation or totally different. And then you hear a voice pop on and it's a Class A and it's I mean, those are some of the best EVPs. That's awesome.
Yeah, the other EVP that we got, I'm still trying to find it because we moved to Florida and I'm still trying to find some of my evidence. But my son and I were doing an investigation at a museum, and we were in the dinosaur room. And I wish, there was about 6 other people with us, but I wish they wouldn't allow video cameras. So I have nothing to back up where anybody was standing or anything like that, which is why I don't share it. But I know the digital voice recorder was on a display case at least 6 feet away from any person. And just while we were doing an EVP session, there was like a squawking growl, like something you would expect to hear from a dinosaur. That was clear as day.
That's not, it's not. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We were in the dinosaur room.
That doesn't shock me. Medium Nancy Matz lived in Tucson, lived in Arizona. And I think she was doing her dishes one day at her window. And she happened to look up and the T-Rex walked by.
Oh, that would be so cool.
She swears up and down she saw like a T-Rex walk by. I just went, okay, cool, that's fine. But yeah, but that's what you saw. So that squawk you got, it doesn't surprise me. It really doesn't.
Yep.
I'm just fascinated by these ghost tales that you guys have. I would love to get my team and go out and do ghost tales like that. I mean, that would be the ultimate. Because nobody's there to bug you. You don't have a bunch of traffic going up and down the street. And as the night gets longer, do you feel that the energy gets thicker as the evening progresses, or is it just the same during the day?
It depends on the location, because I know when we investigated Nelson, we actually did Nelson during the day, so that but in one location in Goldfield, it did get heavier as we got later into the night. Right. But then other times we've investigated in the ghost towns and it almost feels like it gets lighter. And I attribute that as the ghosts are tired of us.
Maybe, yeah.
They're done and they're moving on. They've already talked to us for 2 hours and they're just done.
Yeah. They're heading to the saloon,
Right. Exactly.
Now, this brings me to another thought is, you've done like Goldfield a couple of times, the places that you've done a couple of times. Do you feel that every time you go back, is it easier to have communication with the ghosts because they recognize you? Or is it about the same?
Definitely they do recognize us, because I know for myself, and it wasn't Goldfield that I had this, but it was the museum that we investigated, because that was a location where the team that my son and I were on, we went to the museum, did the investigation, but it was also where we held our monthly team meeting. So, and I would see the same ghost over and over, and he always made an appearance, and it was more, he was a big guy. And when COVID hit and we stopped going to the museum, he actually showed up at my house to check in on me to make sure I was okay.
That's really cool.
And it was like, I'm like, okay, I see you, but now go, you're not allowed in my house. Go away. And then another investigator that I work with quite often, he has the same thing with Nevada State Prison, where they're catching EVPs on other teams that are going there. He's not there because he's investigating and gone home, but they're catching EVPs from other teams saying, "Where's Brent?"
That's awesome.
So I truly, from that and my personal experiences, I truly do believe that they do recognize us and want to continue communicating with us.
See, that was a theory I had early on when I was first starting to do this. I always wondered about that because at the Woodland Opera House, there's a particular opera singer that they call her Madame Macheska that performs at all the opera house. That performed at all the opera houses. She haunts all the opera houses. And I was doing this, I think, at Sacramento Theater Company, and I thought, I wonder if she's here. I wonder if she knows I'm here. So then Karen Clark, one of our lead psychics, walks in and goes, "You got to go on stage. There's someone asking for you." And I said, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, somebody named Madame Macheska is asking for you." And I thought that was the coolest thing because she knew I was there and she recognized me.
Yeah.
So they do have that ability to recognize different people and make connections with different people, which makes it really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. I just love this whole thing with the cowboy energy, and then what types, did you set up trigger objects or anything like that when you're out?
We have used trigger objects. We've used, I know my son's brought toy dinosaurs.
Okay.
To when we've gotten to locations where there have been children.
Sure.
I'm trying to think of it's music is a big trigger when you go to different locations. I've brought old poetry and we've read the poetry at the location. I haven't personally done it, but I know people who have done it. They've gone to different Civil War locations here in Florida and they've dressed up in period attire. And awesome. They get amazing results from that. I just haven't had a chance to do it since we've moved back.
Right.
There is the Gamble Plantation just south of us. I want to get there, and they do reenactments and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I think reenactments are the perfect time to capture paranormal activity.
Absolutely.
So yeah,
I can understand.
and I mean, and getting on the ghost towns thing, it's not just cowboys that are ghost towns, because Florida,
Right.
I have a book coming out next spring, Haunted Florida Ghost Towns. There's over 300 Florida ghost towns.
Wow.
And Florida is second in the nation for ghost towns compared to Nevada.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys are going to be busy, or you've been busy.
Yes, we've been busy with that one. Yep.
From start to finish on these investigations, because you do the research, just like I do the research. You know, it's not like, I try to tell people, it's not like TV. It's not like when Ghost Hunters goes in there and they're done in 3 days. That's not how it works. How long does it take for you to go, to get the thing set up, get out on the investigation site, get done, do your research, and then go through, and get all that evidence reviewed?
If it's not a client residential, by the time we make the decision to go do the investigation, we usually allow ourselves around 2 to 3 weeks to do research, because I like to go to the location. Like, let's say it's a museum, or even one of the plantations here in Florida. We go as just tourists beforehand. And we just go, we walk around, we, make mental notes, and then we document rooms that we felt that were, high energy.
Right.
So you have 3 weeks right there for research and, other exploratory stuff. And then you have either a night or two investigating, depending on how often they let you go. And then I say that we usually stick around for another couple more weeks, because we review the evidence. And each one of us, my son really doesn't do it too much because he gets distracted easy. But between my husband and I, he goes through it first, then I go through it after him. And then if we have something, we have our son listen to it to confirm what we've heard.
Sure.
But then there's times where you get answers that you didn't get during the investigation. So there we are, deep diving into more research. I know in one of the locations we investigated in Vegas, we were given a name in a digital EVP. So we ended up researching that, and then we go back to the location. We request another investigation to, now that we have a name, we want to go try connecting with that name. So depending on the location and what we get during the investigation, investigations stay open anywhere from a month to a couple months.
Right. And the other question I have, when you talk about your EVP work, do you use a certain type of recorder, or do you use different types of recorders? Because certain different recorders will pick up different sound waves.
Yeah, I know. I use it's It's a SIAMPU, Siampu, and it's the one of the ones that has the three microphones, or 3 microphones at the top, the 2 out to the side and the one at the top. We use those, and I also, like I said, I use a digital voice recorder that's a keychain.
Sure.
But other than that, I kind of try to, I guess I know I'm probably cutting myself short on things that I could capture, but I like to stick with things that I know work.
Right.
And it's one of those things where it's like, I know it works. I'm going to continue using it. And I really haven't ventured out, because the ones that I get, they're not that expensive, but I think I've heard other people use some of the higher tech ones, like the H1, or, those $300, $400 ones.
Right.
And I think my quality is better.
Okay, that works. I use Sony. I use Sony ones, and they're old. They're old as sin. I get them on eBay. They've worked for years, and and I'm like you. I'm happy with them. Happy as a client with them. Once in a while,
and like I said, I think my quality is better in the aspect of, because it's not the greatest high tech quality.
Right.
It gives that little bit of imperfections that maybe the spirits need to communicate with us.
Absolutely. Oh, I agree 100% with that. I think you and I would get along great. I'll move to Florida. How's that? We can just start.
That works.
Start going investigating. Now, when you go to check these places out, now I can understand taking the walking tours, which is great, because then you can figure out who's running things too. There's all kinds of ways to get in on these things. When you start eyeballing these towns to go to, are there any particular things that you look for? When you make your decision to say, "Hey, let's go take a look at this place."
Well, first of all, if we stumble on a location, we first look for no trespassing signs, of course. You want to make sure that those are nowhere to be found, because I've heard of way too many investigators recording themselves stepping over the no trespassing sign and posting it on YouTube. So we first of all look for that, and then we try to look for any type of signs to see if it is private property. So sometimes if we stumble on a location, we'll first take some photos of what we can see from the road, and then we go home and we research the locations, because there's a lot of, I mean, even here in Florida, I know Gold Point is a good example. Gold Point may look like a ghost town, but, and Nelson's the same way, but it's privately owned. The whole town is privately owned. And you don't know that just driving up to it, because there's no signs that say keep out, because they welcome tourists to come through. But some locations just, they might not be on site at the time. And, you want to make sure that you do have permission to go where you're going. That's always my biggest thing. But then once we know we have permission to be there, or that it's okay to go, of course, we do daytime walkthroughs to make sure it's safe and that we're not going to run into anything. But in Florida, we run, I mean, granted, in Nevada, we had rattlesnakes, but in Florida, you run into a lot more.
Oh, yeah.
So we really haven't done too much nighttime investigations, because with what we run into during the daytime, we don't want to run into at night.
My motto with Florida and Australia is, if it's really pretty, don't touch it.
Right.
If it's really colorful, stay away.
Stay away.
Stay away. Stay away. What do you have, when you're out doing these investigations, like the Southern Nevada, ghost town ones, what do you like the most about it?
I'm trying to think. I love being outdoors, first of all. I feel a connection with nature to begin with. And that's the one thing I missed about living in Nevada, is being able to walk barefoot in grass. But other than that, I just love being out in the fresh air, especially the Hoover Dam and Lake Mead. Love that area. But of course, those are really high energy locations. Right. And just being able to explore. I always go into locations, even if it's been investigated 110 times by a million other investigators. I still go in as that newbie that wants to, experience something. And I always tell myself, you're going to be the first to experience something here. And, I go in with fresh eyes, and it's exploring and experiencing something new that always excites me. And that excites me about the whole field.
Exactly. Now, there was a question I had too about, I forgot the question. I'm getting senile in my old age. 18 years and I'm senile.
I was going to say, that's my same quote in my show. It's like, I forgot my question.
I know what it was. For a group that's just starting out, for a team, and they want to do ghost towns in Nevada, which one would you suggest that would be? I don't want to start a run on the ghost towns either, because people, how people are. She said this, we're gonna go. Let's just all pack it up and go. We don't care. But what would be one of the easier access places to go if somebody wanted to do that?
I would say either Tonopah or Goldfield.
Okay.
Because Nelson, if you watch Real Haunts Ghost Towns, they interview the owners of Nelson, and they believe that there are spirits there, but they shut everything off. So they don't allow investigations or exploring. And the only reason why we got to go film there is because we were with the production crew.
Okay, that makes sense.
So that one, it's fun to go visit. Great photos. That's where they filmed 3,000 Miles to Graceland, and the crashed plane is still there. So amazing place to go and explore, but they don't really allow paranormal investigations there, and they don't like talking about the ghost either. But and they're really nice people too. So, I mean, I get it. But you have Goldfield, you have the Goldfield High School. I know Red had recently passed away a couple years ago, and his son, I think it's Ed, is taking over. But I know they had shut down giving tours, but recently I've heard through the grapevine that they're opening back up. The Goldfield High School, but they have been shut down for investigations. But if you investigate outside of the high school, trust me, you're going to get something. The Florence Mine, John Ulrich does tours, and John also opens up. John owns several buildings. He owns half the town, owns several buildings. So he opens up a lot. And his son was part of the team that I used to be a part of as well. And they do not really investigations, but they'll do tours. But if you ask to do an investigation, he will allow it. He's very open to that. And I'm not a big person to say that cemeteries are haunted, but Goldfield Cemetery, we had more activity there than we've had on any investigation we've ever been on.
Wow.
So that is a very active location.
I've never been out to even Goldfield. Now, like I said, the farthest I've gotten is Virginia City and Nevada. That's it. That's it.
No, get to Goldfield. That's where you want to go. We had a lot of fun there. Gold Point is a great location to go, but the owner of the town, it's two brothers and their partner. They actually hit it. They struck it rich in Vegas and went out and just drove and came across Goldfield, and there was a sign up for sale, and they purchased it. So, but they've been restoring it. If you go, Sheriff Kremen, he is the self-appointed sheriff of the town. He'll pull up on you once you get into town on his ATV with the gun on his side, but don't let that scare you. He's a teddy bear. He'll invite you in for a drink at the bar. You can play pool. But he's really not big into appearing on podcasts or anything, because the minute he said to us when we told him we were filming for the documentary, he's like, "Oh, I don't do podcasts." And it's like, no, it's not a podcast, it's a documentary. And then our producer came out and he shared all his information and he let us in. But they do rent out the mining cabins.
Cool.
And but they don't have bathrooms, so you'll have to use the outhouse. But the mining cabins have access to a lot of paranormal activity. So if you're staying there, just staying in the mining cabin, you can conduct a full-blown investigation in your cabin.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now let's talk about some of these EVPs that you guys have got in these locations, because obviously, you got miners there, you got cowboys there, you got the ladies of the evening there. What types of EVPs have you guys been able to get? Who have you talked to essentially?
Yeah, we have captured, of course, all the hellos, and that was at the Hangman's Noose. And I did. Oh. Sorry, my son's whispering, "Tell him the dinosaur, tell them the dinosaur."
That was a cool story, by the way. Okay, go ahead.
He's giving a thumbs up. Yeah, we still got to find that. But when I find it, I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
But yeah, we've had, I know when we were investigating the Goldfield Cemetery, we were at, what was his name? Marmaduke?
For what?
The cemetery that you were investigating at? Right,
with the Confederate.
Yeah, there was a Confederate soldier and his name was Marmaduke.
Yeah.
And we were conducting an investigation at his grave. And when I went back through and listened to the EVPs afterwards, you could hear a female's voice.
Okay.
So it was almost like a female was visiting his grave. So that was her comfortable place because she knew him in life, and that's where she went before she passed. Or, like he said, it could have been the soldier, or, who knows what that was. We've gotten, I know I wasn't in the same location as this one, but a member of my team, we were investigating a brothel, and he had asked, "Do you only service men?" And his response was, "No, I service women too." So he captured that. And,
cool.
So we've gotten a lot of stuff. And then, of course, we didn't capture any EVPs of the men crying in that one shaft, but we did have some strange voices whispering that we captured also at the mill house, but it almost sounded like a full-blown conversation. It was, like the beginning of the workday type of conversation.
Sure.
Where, you'd have one person talking and giving instructions, and then two or faint voices just kind of responding. And I would classify that one more as a class C, I guess, because it was all mumbles.
I just love that you guys do that. Those ghost I think it's great. Now you're giving me incentive to get up off my duff and, take the team out to these places, to investigate, because it's fun to do.
We need to get out again more often, because since we've moved to Florida, we haven't done a full-blown investigation outside of, okay, we've gone to this location, let's ask a few questions, or, hey, let's go to this location. While we're here, let's pull out the dowsing rods. We haven't done a full overnight, or, and I've been too stuck into researching these locations and where I actually need to get out and do a full-blown investigation.
See, I've been putting so much energy into this radio show that we haven't done anything. Because I'm trying to build it up, and well, you know what it's like to build up a podcast, and it's an old job, so I'm constantly doing that, but I'm getting the itch again to get back out, and do stuff. Yep. And I mean, I think the best way to do it is to do some commercial stuff, which means old hotels or whatever, ghost towns, and to get out and do that. What do you say to somebody that wants to start out and wants to go that route, or wants to get into investigation? Should they do things like hotels first and things like that to get used to their equipment?
I always say, because I'm 100% will not use my equipment in my house. That's my rule. It doesn't get turned. I mean, even when we got the spirit box, to check to make sure it didn't get broken in shipping, we went to a park. So I always tell people who are wanting to get into the field, first do your research, and I'm talking about not research by watching Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures. Of course you can watch that for great information, but know it's for entertainment, and weed out the entertainment from what's factual and what's not. Read. I have behind me, this whole bookcase behind me is full of paranormal books, from everybody from Hans Holzer, you name it. Throughout the years, I have stuff from them. Read a lot, reach out to an experienced team, not just a team that is out for the likes on Facebook. Find a team that has been around for 15, 20, 30 years. We're out there. Yep. And I always tell people, my Facebook is open, my email is open, reach out to me, go to my Facebook page. We haven't done it since we moved to Florida, but we're actually in the talks of doing it with different locations. But we used to do training sessions. Cool. And actually it would be a training session. And then once we taught everybody what, they needed to do, kind of like a ghost hunting 101, then we would actually do the investigation afterwards. And we're planning on starting to do those here in Florida. So find a different team, that you can do, or, find those things, but make sure the team you're going with, because nothing against some of these weekenders, but you have these weekend warrior teams that, bought their equipment, and then now they're like, okay, I've got my equipment, I'm going to start doing residentials. It's no, slow down, slow down, take your time, and, go to a park. Make sure if you go to a park, and it doesn't have to be at night. I actually wrote a blog about it a couple years ago about park investigating etiquette. Of course, find the rules of the park. If you're going to be there after dark, notify if it's, the park's open at night. Right. At least, notify, your local police or even the park district to let them know that, hey, we are going to be at the park at night. Is it okay? We saw that it's open, or even during the day. But if you're going to be doing EVP sessions, make sure no one else is around you, because that could freak out and not only will it contaminate your EVPs, but it'll freak out other people that you're doing that, because not everybody wants to be around when we're doing paranormal investigations. Right. And, as always, like I said, it can never hurt to learn. I still, when I see someone's, a lot of people selling these online courses, I'll still sign up for them, because I pick up something from them all the time. You never know what you're going to learn.
And the other thing, something that we learned the hard way too, and we were out doing a newspaper thing up in Placerville up here, was, you need to work, and I agree with you, you need to practice with that equipment. You have to practice with it. Because what happened to us was we were getting these great readings on the, IR thermometer, and then when we went to the cemetery to do some photos and play around with it a little bit, we realized that the trifil meter was too close to the IR thermometer, and it was setting it off.
Yep.
So there's things like that to learn. Yes, go ahead.
Right. And know how the equipment works and how it relates to the paranormal field. Because I know we were on investigation, and I don't use K2 meters just because I have other theories that I personally don't think they detect paranormal activity, because there's radio waves around us. Even if there's no power in a house, if you're still within so many miles of a radio tower, you're still going to get radio waves. And who's to say that that's not the wave frequency setting off the K2 meter? But he had it, and it started going crazy. And we're like, wait, and we're thinking it's, giving Morse code or something, because it was doing that. It was like the beep, 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 beep. So we're writing it all down. And when he got home, he realized he put unshielded batteries in the K2 meter. Oh, yeah. So the meter was reading its own batteries.
Oh, yeah.
So
and plus,
it's always
don't they have a cycle they run through too?
Yeah.
They have a cycle. So, I mean, it could be really quiet for a while. Then all of a sudden, it looks like you're getting answers, and you're not. It's just because it's cycling.
Right.
I don't like
too.
K2s. Yeah, I don't use
Yep.
K2s.
Yeah.
Don't like
No,
them.
they're too sensitive. They're great if you're going through a house to check their electrical wires to make sure they're not off the charts. But other than that, I don't. I mean, I always get hate mail for this, but I don't think it's a paranormal investigation tool outside of checking for baseline readings.
Now, along that line, and doing this for 30 years, like you've done it, what do you think is the key piece of paranormal equipment to have out in the field?
That's a tough answer because I've actually switched my answers recently because I've been diving into the science behind the paranormal a little bit more in recent years. I've always thought that, of course, you have, your body is your number one tool. What you see, hear, feel, think, and everything like that. And the digital voice recorders and the video cameras are must-haves, and they're the key to this. But I've been doing a lot of different research and working with some different scientists lately. And I truly do feel that the Eddy Plus, even though it does measure EMF, it gives you everything else that you need between vibrations, but set it down. Don't carry it with you everywhere you go. Set it in one place. But I also think mass spectrometer is going to be the key to cracking this field wide open, because that measures ions in the air, nitrogen, carbon. I think depending on how expensive you get, you can measure up to 100 different chemicals in the air.
Wow.
And if we're getting paranormal activity and all of a sudden carbon and nitrogen spike, does that mean spirits are manifesting using that? So is that what they're made of, type of thing?
That's going to be huge. Yeah. That's going to be huge. How do you feel about because I'm curious, for like older investigators like us, how do you feel about the SLS camera?
You want to get me started on that one, don't you? No.
Yeah, let's go. I'm game.
We actually had someone on our team. He was a very techie guy, and he made some amazing equipment and he thought totally outside of the box and had some experiments that were great that we did. And he actually made one because he wanted to see how it worked. And it was one of those things. It was like, like you said earlier, the early years. And we were all in awe over this thing, and we were playing around with it, trying to figure out how it worked, and not realizing. And this was like they had just showed it on TV, and he had it built a week later. So it was like that's how brand new it was at the time. So there wasn't much details about it, and we instantly came up with our own theories about it, and it's being matched by everyone else. But one of the investigators was standing on the other side of the room, and he was, talking. And it looked like the figure was mocking him. Well, we didn't put two and two together. There was a glass window next to him.
Oh, yeah.
So it was picking up his figure in the glass window. And then later on, we were doing it up against a blank wall. And it was, it was mocking him again. And it was the blank wall was reflecting his heat signature. And his heat signature was being picked up by the camera as another entity. And then, of course, you have, chairs, walls. There was a display case that was showing this giant figure in the room. And we used it that one time and never used it again.
I've even seen it trigger off TVs. Like if somebody has a TV on, you aim it towards the TV, it focuses right in on the actor on the TV.
Right. Yep.
It'll go off like that. Even like Christmas stockings that have faces on them. You got to be really careful with them. Really careful.
Yep. I had someone send me one of a cemetery, and they're like, look at all these little gnomes on the headstones. And it was mapping all the headstones as people. Yeah, it'll do that. And I'm like, no, it's one of those, it could have been. Who am I to say? But there's too many what ifs and too many natural explanations for it. And I'm the one who, when they use them on the different shows, I'm yelling at the TV saying, what do you mean there's a stick figure on the wall? There's a crack in the wall. Yeah. I think if you use them, you have to, like you say, you have to be really careful with them, and you have to know what they're capable of triggering on, because otherwise there's no point just going out and just pointing them in any direction. Right. Yeah. And why do they always look like they're dancing or humping a chair leg? That's pretty funny. That's really funny.
I like you. Yeah, I'm gonna have to move to Florida. That did it. We're moving to Florida, guys. Florida haunts. No more California haunts. Florida haunts.
Move the whole team.
Move the whole damn team. Yeah. I can deal. I can deal with the the Everglades. I'm good. I can handle that. Just as long as the snakes and stuff don't come into my yard, I'm good. I'm good for that.
Exactly.
No gators, no crocodiles. No. But I'm good with that. Why do you like investigating so much?
Because I'm still trying to find the answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those, I personally know in my, beliefs, I personally know paranormal activity occurs and that there are ghosts and there's spirits around us all the time. I want to know why and how. And that is why I've taken more of a scientific approach.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly do think, I have a lot of fun coming up with new theories, coming up with different investigation techniques. And, I'm working right now with a couple people to, someone I know, he's actually has seizures triggered every time he sees his great-great-grandfather.
Wow.
And he never really had seizures until he was 40. And that was the first time he encountered his great-great-grandfather. Okay. So we're kind of working with, I've sent emails out, and this is just a recent study that we've started. So I've sent emails out to a neurologist as well as a cardiologist and someone who specializes in epilepsy for us to kind of conduct some research. And then in addition to trying to find more scientific backing behind the field, I've also recently, I feel sorry for clients. I had a heartbreaking case, so I really haven't done a client investigation 5 years now, just because it was like so heartbreaking. She had me in tears because she's on the phone crying that she's not crazy, but we had zero evidence whatsoever of any paranormal activity happening. And it's hard because her pain is real. But her pain was also exaggerated, I think, a little bit, because a team went in prior to us. And actually, there was one team prior to us, several teams after us, because she just keeps reaching out to teams. Sure. And every team that has come in has told her she has a demon attached to her.
Oh, brother.
And we investigated her house between myself and the other team we were working with. We investigated 5 times. And we've cleansed her home. We, a whole bunch of different ways. I guess she had a priest come in, but the priest charged her $5,000 to cleanse her home.
What?
And yeah, I think he was a fraud. But he even said that she had a demon in the house. All the other teams, like I said, claimed that she had a demon. And this is why I think, if you want to do the weekend, go out and ghost hunt and do, the weekend jaunts, that's perfectly fine. Go do that. Go have fun. Take your tours. You're not harming anybody. But when it comes to clients, I truly do believe that we need some type of, not so much, well, yeah, I guess it would be like almost like a regulation, like get your business license or get your nonprofit license and register with the government. So that way somebody, is monitoring, making sure that these people aren't going in and causing harm. And if they do go in and cause harm with these clients, there's a way to track them. Because there's too much. I've encountered, even with other people who've sent me stuff, they said, oh no, I've had such and such team, and it's a team here in Florida, have told me I have a demon in my house, and they sent me all these photos. And they're like, see, look at all these light anomalies. And they're not orbs, but they're actual like lightning, like huge lightning rods. Almost kind of the same thing you would get when you leave your lens open and you shine a flashlight on the ground and like paint, light painting.
Right.
And they actually put these photos on Facebook when she asked them not to.
Jeez.
So they shared her home with all of these, and then when I got a hold of the original photos and analyzed them, they were faked. So they faked these photos, sent them to the client, told her she had a demon, shared them. But then when you go through their photo history on Facebook, they shared every client they've ever done, and they have a similar light anomaly in the photos.
See, that's the thing. It's like people don't realize, and I don't know if it's these teams don't realize, either they're, like you say, they're eager for likes or whatever. They see it on TV, so it's going to be easy to go in. That's one of the most things that scares me is when I talk to somebody that wants to join my team, and the guy goes, oh, I already know how to do this. I've been watching Ghost Hunters. And it's like, but you've never been out talking to people.
Nothing against Zach, because I know Zach, and I've been on Ghost Adventures, but I had a client tell us once, "Why are you doing it that way? That's not how Zach does it."
Oh, absolutely. Oh, I know.
And I'm like,
Or if you go in, and this is what I found too, if you go into a case, you don't have all that fancy equipment, there's people that won't talk to you.
right.
And it's like, well, really, we don't need all that fancy stuff. We can do it without, but
Yep.
I've run into that too. But that's the thing that gets me is, and I'm not trying to cut teams out. I don't want to start any team wars or anything like this.
Right.
For doing it as long as we have. I mean, the first residential we ever did terrified us because we thought, oh my God, we're going into somebody's house. We're dealing with their mental state, and we have to go in and do this and try and solve this. It scared us. It scared every team member I had. And it should be taken very seriously because you are dealing with someone's mental state. Like I can't say how many countless investigations we've had where it turned out they changed somebody's medication, and that's why they were experiencing things. I mean, you have to look for everything. It's not a game going out there.
Right.
And go ahead.
And consult with medical professionals too, because in one case that we had, the woman was claiming she was constantly being touched, and she had extreme anemia. Okay. And extreme anemia causes tactile hallucinations and the sensation of being touched. So even the medical condition, and who's to say, we've run into different cases where, people, and it's mostly cleaning up. I mean, and this is where I say, if you're going to do residential cases, take the time to study and learn and know what you're doing before you go. I mean, if you want to be a weekend warrior, go to it, have at it. Right. But we've had so many people come to us and they haven't been officially diagnosed with schizophrenia or bipolar or anything like that yet, but they show signs of it. And then you have a team go into this home and say, yes, you have a demon in your house. The next thing you know, they're self-manifesting, and that could be enough to push them over the edge.
Yes.
And you know, and then you're held liable for that.
Yes, absolutely. You have to be so careful. I have 3 nurses on my staff, which is nice. Because if I see something, because you're a journalist, I'm a journalist. You and I are watching body language when we're interviewing people. That's what we're trained to do. So if I see something that I'm not comfortable with when I'm talking to somebody, I'll call one of the nurses out, have them come talk to them, just to see if we can figure out what's going on with it. But this hour went by. This is great. I love talking to you. I would love to have you on again at some point. It was wonderful.
Just let me know.
Absolutely. How do people find you?
You can find me either on my website. It's heatherleighphd.com, or you can find me. I host Exploring the Paranormal on Tuesday mornings. It's actually stopped right now because WLTK radio shut down, but I will be starting again in 2 weeks, or a week from this Tuesday, or a week from tomorrow. Oh my goodness. But that will be at Exploring the Paranormal Show on Facebook, and it'll also air on Things Network. And then you can find my other Facebook page is Dr. Heather Leigh. Okay.
Right. Thank you so much. I wish you guys all the best of luck in Florida. Stay in touch. I want to see what you guys get. Okay. Stay in touch.
And when you come to Florida, let us know.
Absolutely. Well, you'll know because I'll be the first one screaming when I see like a brightly colored snake, because that's how I am. All right. You have a great evening. Okay. And a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. You too. No problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye. All right. That was great. That was some awesome stuff. I mean, that gives me incentive to get my gear and my team in gear and just head out and do investigations. Tomorrow night, I have a pre-recorded interview for you. I did that. I did it on Saturday, and this is going to be interesting. The guest is Kathleen Kelly, RN, and she has written a unique book about things that happened during her time as a trauma nurse in the ER. And she's got some really, really cool cases she talks about. She's also a sensitive. And the first part of the interview is about her abilities and what she does with them. But it's just so interesting stuff. She's got about 2 chapters in this book about events she saw, with dying people, as far as being a sensitive, seeing their family members come. It's a fascinating book. And she also talks about a couple really unique cases that she experienced while working in the ER. And she not only worked in a big ER like in California, but she worked in a real tiny town in Arizona. And boy, the excitement there was crazy. So I hope you guys, give it a listen tomorrow night, because it's really a good interview. It's about an hour. I'll let you know, it's your popcorn together and stuff. It's an hour and a half interview, but it's really a thorough interview. And like I said, the first part of it is about her psychic abilities and what she does with them, and then we start getting into the nitty gritty of life in the ER. It's kind of like that Discovery show, right? The ER thing. Only this is like for Arizona, so it's really cool. It's really cool. So hopefully you do that. That'll be 6:30 p.m. Pacific tomorrow. And the link is over on Facebook, and I'll be sending the link out, some more tomorrow. And it's going to be over on YouTube at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. It's going to heat up here. Summer is taking one last gasp. This is the last big heat up, and then it's over. Come next Sunday, it's over. So I was hoping to get a lot of yard work and stuff done, but it's not going to happen because suddenly it's going to get really hot. And I'm not going to even do anything with that again until it goes down. But anyway, I want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. And you're going to be hearing more from the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation team. We're going to go more public, and we're going to be doing some live investigations right here on YouTube and right here on Facebook, and maybe even TikTok. So we're going to have some live investigations coming up. So be on the lookout for that stuff. Halloween's coming, and we want to put some stuff out there for you guys to see. And again, I'm teaching that class on how to process EVPs and how to manage EVPs once you do get them, the type of equipment to use and things like that. So if it's something that interests you, check out the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup site around 8 p.m. Pacific tonight. I'll have all the information up for that. But again, thank you very much. And if you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies, because we are just trying to get the word out about our little old show. We're trying to build up our subscribers over on YouTube and keep our Facebook followers going. So please be sure to do that and let people know about our show. And I hate to do this. It's the beginning of the month, and I got to get the bills paid. I got to keep the show on the air, and this is just how it is. It's just a fact of life. And if you guys could help me do that, I'd appreciate it. I had some medical expenses that I wasn't expecting this month, so I'm running short on paying the bills for this show. So if you guys, every little bit helps, and I'd really appreciate it. I don't like to beg, I don't like to ask, but if there's any chance that you can help me out a little bit, that would be great to pay for my internet fees and stuff. I'd appreciate it. And that is at paypal.me/California Haunts. Or you can do it at Venmo, and that would be California Haunts at Venmo. So I would really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, because I want to keep this show going. Good guests. Got a good week coming up. All right, I will see you. I will be in on chat tomorrow. I won't be live. I will be on the chat for Kathleen County RN, Voices of the ER. So here we go. Let me give you information for Heather. Her website is heatherleighphd.com. And of course, you can Google her or search for her on Facebook as well. And she's got 2 sites over there. So check that out. And the books. Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns, Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley are the first 2 books. And she's got 2 more books that she has written. One is a dream journal. We were just talking about dreams the other night, guys, and keeping a journal. So there you go. She has a dream journal. And 13 Things Ghost Hunting Taught Me About Network Marketing. I think I'm going to be reading that one. Anyway, you can get those books at Amazon.com. All right. Once again, tomorrow's another day, and I will see you guys tomorrow on the chat. Have a great one.